All right, what's up, Vibe Tribe? It's Wednesday, and Vibrant is back. Feels like it's been more than a week. Guess it's because I took a lot of Wednesdays off in May, which is not typical for us. So I'm really glad to be back in the saddle. And we've got an excellent special guest. Maybe this gentleman's first podcast appearance, but certainly not for lack of knowledge. PK, aka Paul. He has participated in our live chats and our Telegram group. If you've been around, you've seen his name. He's got lots of good stuff to say and lots of knowledge, lots of gravy. It could weave with the best of them. And I don't know if you noticed this, PK, but in the Telegram chat, which, by the way, everyone should join if you're not a member of the InnerVerse chat on Telegram. It's awesome. Best vibes around. After I announced that you were the guest for tonight, you got more response and excitement generated than big names on regular podcast circuits. I've got you muted. Here you go, buddy.
Oh, you know what it is, though? I think it's got to be the topics. I'm going to be humble with that. You wrote like an amazing little intro there. And to see that from like this side, knowing how much information you had to do that was impressive. That's
my job.
Dude, it was a good. I'm like, how did he do that? With like, I sent you a couple pictures and it was like, yeah, we're going to talk about Stellarium. And then boom, it's that. So kudos to you, man. I think that's what it's about. But I'm happy to be here.
Well, it comes from hundreds of times of synthesizing information on the fly. It's kind of my skill set. And I'm stoked to see Gabe with feathers and hair. What's up, dude? Hey. Yeah, right on cue, freezes.
Right on.
Excellent. Oh, there he is. Yeah, we'll take our customary little pauses for Gabe to weigh in. We're just really glad to have you here, man. And thank you, Liam, for the 10 euro super chat. Much appreciated. Gabe, how have you been, dude? I would like to hear from you.
Doing very wonderful. Thank you for having me back. And thank you again for the patience, everybody, with the signal. But this is a glitch dissident. That's what's up. But yeah, this is one I've been looking forward to. PK, you're looking glorious, my friend. That is such a rocking beard, my man.
I'm over here sweating. Like, I'm admiring his beard, but my hair, I have a short beard, but my hair is so heavy. I'm like sweating down my cheeks. I don't know if I could do a beard like that. I'm impressed though. I'm definitely all props to you, brother.
And I'm in Florida too, so super humid down here, but I don't know, you get used to it. So appreciate it.
So do you want to introduce yourself in any way other than Eddie Dude in the chat?
Yeah, so all right, I don't know what happened. I just felt a little feedback. But yeah, I live in Florida right now, and I keep hearing myself. Do you guys hear me coming through good?
Yeah, you sound fine.
I know why. I just started YouTube. I'm an idiot, so I could see the chat.
The best of us.
And I'm like hearing myself. Okay, so YouTube's muted. All right. Yeah, so I have been kind of in this looking into questioning stuff for some years now. And one of the reasons I wanted to hop on here, do a show with you guys was one of the biggest things that I think is like first asked, right? When you jump into this world, this conspiracy, like, kind of questioning everything, kind of unlearning what you've been programmed that, as a kid growing up and everything. At least for me, in my initial journey, it seemed like everything kind of pointed me back to the stars. And I was like, all right, there's something to this, something to the stars. And one of the main questions, I think that people kind of come come to early on in this journey is basically the difference between tropical and sidereal astrology. And I've heard it addressed numerous times. It's brought up and sometimes brushed over. And my goal, one of my goals here for this this Vibrant is to share with you guys Stellarium and walk through talk through the tropical versus sidereal as it pertains to the actual sky. I say actual sky, but I'm going to use a computer program. But this program Stellarium is more real, appropriate to the actual sky than say a astro chart, that you get off various websites, right? That just looks like everyone knows what a chart looks like. So I want to take that, put it in the sky, talk about the difference tropical sidereal, talk about some cool things that I've noticed or learned along the way, like using the software, and then also kind of, then going outside and kind of, verifying. So yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a good chat. And I got the chat now pulled up for the YouTube. So hopefully we can see, if you guys have questions along the way, hopefully we can address them. And I will be first to say, I probably have more questions than I do answers, but at least one thing that, and sorry, I'm kind of going on here, but one thing that was very frustrating to me is that it took me I'd say like a whole year to figure out what this difference was of tropical and sidereal. And that, I think it was a little bit on me, but then it was a little bit on people explaining it. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is explain it in a way that I've never really heard anyone else go through, that, whenever this topic or question gets brought up again, you guys can just point to, be like, yo, go watch this. And then you might just want to watch up to here so you don't get into all the weird purple stuff we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's like a double header.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great introduction to the subject. You're natural. So when are you starting your channel? You've already got the mic. You got the stage presence.
I got the mic.
Man.
Watch out. Watch out.
Pythagoras ain't got nothing on PK's beard. Polymathing. He's the next on the hit list from our regulars in the chat.
Him. Yeah. Louis awesome. And
he just posted this in the Telegram. It's what's going on around Taurus right now. You got a huge pileup happening of planets. And I'm showing this on the screen, but if you're just listening, it's Uranus, Jupiter, Mercury, the moon, the sun, all just boom, right around Taurus. This is the episode where if you're like an RSS feed listener, probably worth going for the YouTube video, at least through the part we're going on Stellarium, because it's very much a show and tell.
Very much. And hey, I got this fan on in the background.
Got something on.
I'm going to turn it off real quick.
We can't hear it, PK. You're fine.
Oh, you can't?
I wish I had a fan. Must be nice.
It's a dehumidifier, actually. So, all right. If you can't hear it.
So, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to rant. I'd like to rant just a little on that alignment in Taurus. The arrangement. Am I good to go? Am I coming through?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Thank you. Okay. I want to interpret this train wreck that's happening in the head of the bull of Taurus. I think that this could be a reenactment of Caligula's battle against the sea. Caligula sent his soldiers to storm the beaches of Britain, and they camped out there until they were in dire straits. And then he gave them orders to literally throw their spears into the sea and make a battle, literally a battle with the ocean, and then collect the seashells off the seashore in their helmets and come home with those helmets. This curse onto the military is actually a way of breaking the spirit of the fighting men in your culture for years to come. And some of the proof of this is in the word escargot. In French, escargot in faux pas translation means homeless or vagabond. And so there are insults in our language going way over our head back hundreds of years, and it has a lot to do with breaking the spirit of the men. So I just wanted to put that in the context of what we've been seeing in our community and culture, and put Caligula's War on the Sea into our current situation, because of you guys have been listening to me go on and on about seashells by the seashore actually being inseminated.
They zapped you right on seashells by the seashore. You were about to tell us what it really is. Start over from there. Now you're muted, bud. Okay, we might have to move forward. He's dropped out. Okay, now I'm sure we'll get the answer to. We're all on the edge of our freaking seats.
I know.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
They zapped him at the right time. Look, I'm going to turn this thing off because it's kind of bugging me. It'll take me 1 second.
Okay, man. Just me. And then there was one. I'm going to go ahead and bring up this program, Stellarium. I have a feeling that after this conversation, I'll probably be getting a copy. Finally, because being able to screen share it would be huge. Because right now, all I do is I point at this planisphere. Like, planisphere is good enough for me to look at where different constellations are relative to each other. But I definitely got to get myself on Stellarium. So I'm looking forward to the tutorial.
Yeah, I Stellarium's completely free. You know, and there is a huge difference between the Stellarium app that you get on your phone, and then, you know, I'm not familiar with the Apple's program, the Apple program, but I'm sure it's probably the same. Just the desktop version of Stellarium is way better. There's no comparison. Way better than what you get on your phone. So this thing has helped me to learn, you know, the motions of the heavens better than anything else. So highly recommend it. It's free. It takes a while to, you know, play with the settings, but that's not what this is going to be about, because, you know, there's a zillion videos out there, you know, that you can search Stellarium tutorial or whatever, and find what you need.
In the time that you said all that, I've already downloaded it. So I'm finally jumping on board.
Yeah. Super cool. So yeah, this is Stellarium here. Let's get a couple things, just some, like, let's lay the landscape out. All right. So we're looking north right now. I can zoom in here, and, you know, here's Polaris. And then I'll also figure that thing out too. So there's Polaris. We're looking north. Now, right now, I do not have the land up. So let me see. Always got to play with the all right, ground. So just so you know here, the thick green line right here is the ground, the horizon. Basically. Yeah, it's the horizon. So there, everyone can see that. So when we're looking down there, we're looking, you know, underground or whatever. We're looking below the
underworld.
horizon. Yeah, the underworld. And then so right now, currently, I'm in Florida, just kind of where I'm at. We may jump to the Equator, some city in Ecuador, because it's cool to kind of see things from that perspective. But the few things we want to talk through is the zodiac, how it relates to actual sky, some interesting, you know, placements, if you will, and then just some, like you said beautifully in your you know thing that you wrote about the episode, just some mechanics, right? So I think a good place to start. So we have that done. Let's go to let's start at the beginning of the year, which you know, in old times used to be um the spring equinox. And so what I'm going to do here, I want to start out by saying that the exactness of astrology and in astrology charts, I think um is not super important for what I'm trying to show. And you know, so like we could look up, you know, the exact dates, because if you were to look up when is the spring equinox, they will give you an exact time. You know, and that time that is given is when the sun passes through this point right here. And what this is basically this blue line here is the equatorial line. It's the equator. So it's Earth's equator essentially in the sky. And I'll explain that a little bit more, but just remember that. And then here is the ecliptic. The ecliptic, it's important to remember, is the path of the sun throughout the year. It's not the path of the sun throughout the day, right? The ecliptic may look like this, you know, going off to the right here, but the sun may go, you know, will go up like that or whatever. So it's the path of the sun through the year. And speaking of that, let's just start with some basics to get this out. The how the sun.
I want to add something in too about the equator line. So where does this line come from? How's it originally derived? Pretty sure it's a sextant, if I'm not mistaken, when it was first mapped. And so
let's do it right now. Yeah.
So if you're using a sextant to find this imaginary line we call the equator, using an elevation angle with a like Polaris, for example, in the sky, that requires trigonometry. That requires a triangle. That requires a flat baseline, a flat elevation angle. You know, just the very nature of how the equator is determined only works with a flat floor. Doesn't work on a curved surface. Just, you know, if anyone's curious about that, what that, like the fact that we have an equator or maps at all that show these tropics in the equator is in itself a tell if you understand how they are drawn.
Yes. That's definitely one of the you know, big positives, or you know, I have some questions about, which I don't know if we'll get into because it's kind of complicating. But as far as the equator goes, look at what I just did was I moved to this Quito, Ecuador, which is like a city in Ecuador. They have, you know, as they do in Four Corners in the US, they have like the equator line, you know, painted down in a monument or whatever. Like the equator goes through our city, come visit, you know, sort of thing. So we're right now, I just jumped to Quito, El Salvador here in Stellarium. And you could see here the equator now, instead of being on a tilt like it was, is now straight up and down. because we are literally on Earth's equator. Another thing that is very that I don't know, a lot of people don't know right off the bat or whatever, is just interesting. Orion, everyone's familiar, and so I have Chance, you think it's okay I got my setup like this, because I know most people are familiar with this one. Like this is the one that you see on your phone and stuff. So maybe it'd be better if I went with this one. What do y'all think?
I think that's good for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because it gives people more of easy to see illustration in a stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the resolution isn't as high.
So you could, okay, we'll stick with this. So what's
I like the
interesting
HA
about
ray though. That's the coolest one.
Yeah, I do too. I like how he draws them out. And so this right here is an equator line. And so Orion's belt, right, is like the most obvious, prominent, thing in the night sky. Orion, the top star in his belt, like just right above it, is what separates the northern hemisphere from the southern hemisphere. And when I'm talking about hemispheres, I'm talking about the celestial, orb, right? The heavens above us appear to be in a circle dome type orb thing. And so that's just pretty cool. And you can really tell this when you go to a place on the equator like Quito, Ecuador, and then your equator line is straight up and down, and basically you go to the zenith, which is the straight up middle part, of where you're standing at the highest point, straight up in the sky. That is where Orion will travel over, and it is basically,
So Orion's belt
separating.
covers off like the northern sky versus the southern sky.
Exactly.
If it was in halves.
If it was in halves. Yeah. So let's go back home.
Pretty cool.
And so now we could see here how the equator line is tilted because we're north of the equator. So if I went somewhere south of the equator, it'd be tilted the other way. See that? And so just because where we are, is what that tilts about. All right. And so what happens here, this is how let's go back to the spring equinox. All right. So, and let's back up just a little bit. The sun.
While we're looking at the equinox, let's turn off the constellation drawings for that.
All right. Turn them off there. Let's just
I'm micromanaging.
Let's keep them off. All right. So, first let's back up a little bit. And so how this works is the sun, basically it precesses, meaning, all right, everything in the sky moves east to west. Everyone knows that. You look north, sun rises to your right, sets to your left. If you look south, the sun rises to your left and sets to the right. Okay, but everything is always east to west. Now, what happens throughout the year is that the sun will move it precesses 4 minutes essentially per day. And what I mean by that is that, so let's go down to right here. So the time that the sun moves in 4 minutes, 1, 2, 3, 4, is how much the sun will precess. And what I mean by precess, there is a difference between a solar day and a sidereal day. A sidereal day is when the heavens, not the sun, the stars behind the sun, do a full rotation back to the same spot. A solar day is when the sun does a full rotation to go back to the same spot. That solar day is 4 minutes slower. And let me show you a picture that will help better wrap your head around this. So we could see here, let me full screen it. All right. So here, look at this star right here. This is just, it's like Libra or whatever. And look at notice the date and time. All right. So we're 11/12 is the November 12th, and we're at 7/8. Okay. 7 o'clock, 7:08. And then we go, let me see, hide that. We go forward 8 minutes. Did that work? Okay, so we go from 7/8 to 7/12. We go forward 4 minutes. So see how much that moved in 4 minutes. Now let's go forward 1 day. That goes forward 1 day. So see how this distance right here was the same as 4 minutes. And then, so here's the baseline. It moves in 4 minutes that amount. And then in 1 day, in one sidereal day, not a sidereal day, a solar day, the star right here moves 4 minutes faster than the sun, thus causing the sun to precess backwards through the ecliptic. And that's what changes the signs. Did that make sense? I could explain it in Stellarium, but thought that this picture here would kind of shows that. What do you think, Chance?
Yeah, I think that you explained it well, and I think it's good to summarize it succinctly one more time. You know, because this is really helpful astronomical baseline.
Yeah, this is like the crux of this is like how, yeah, this is how basically it works, right? So so let's look at the sun this time. All right. So the sun right here, it's 7:08 in the morning. If we go 4 minutes forward in time, the sun has moved you know, from there to there, right? So just like that little bit. Now, if we go 1 day forward from this baseline here, from 7/8, if we go tomorrow to 7:08 in the morning, we could see here that the sun is pretty much at the same spot. But now that this star, the background, the sidereal is what it's called, has moved because the stars are essentially 4 minutes faster than the sun each day. And so the time that it took this star essentially to move in 4 minutes and the sun to move in 4 minutes is like over the whole day, how much faster the stars move than the sun, and the sun then processes backwards through the ecliptic. And it will, I think, I'm just going to leave it there for now. I think it will make more sense as we talk through this. But what that does is it causes the sun, like I said, remember that this dark green line is the ground. And so what will happen is the sun will go backwards through the zodiac, right? And so right here we have the constellation of Pisces, right? Aries, okay? And now let's look at another thing here. You got the this is the ecliptic in this orange line. So like right here, right? This orange line is the ecliptic. And if I zoom in right here where the equator line meets a ecliptic line, this spot right here is what is called in science, astronomy, whatever, it is the spring equinox. And so when the sun, let's go back a couple days, and you could see here now the sun is on the other side of this. And remember, every day, right, it precesses, so it goes backwards through the ecliptic. Now, when the sun passes through, when the sun passes through this place right here, that is what they call the spring equinox. And that's why when you look it up, they'll give some like exact time. They'll give an exact time when that happens. And so just this past year, or just, a couple months ago or whatever, this so happened it happened like at night. And basically, the sun was underground or whatever on the other side of the world when it happened, when it passed through that exact spot. Okay. So, but one thing to know is that by observation, so say you're outside and you can watch the sunrise every day. Well, when the sun rises most directly east, okay, that is the equinox. Now, it just so happens in this year, though, that the closer
Easter.
the equinox, yes, the closer the equinox is to dawn, to when the sun rises, the closer to when then the more exact this will be. And what I mean by exact is that the sun rises exactly due east. So see here, I got 19 and then the 20th. So see how it doesn't, we kind of miss exactly rising due east, because like I said, the exact equinox was at like midnight or something. It was at like 10:30 p.m. So the sun,
what you're highlighting too is how
yeah.
These equinoxes and solstices are more conceptual than literal in terms of like, exactly equal day and night.
Okay, let's talk about that. Because I think Crow is like one of the where I heard this the first time. And basically he's like, oh yeah, we're being tricked. Like the equinox has nothing to do with equal day night, or it's like the equal day night isn't until like days after the equinox. So what the hell, right? And so it took me a minute to digest that. I don't know if any of you guys ever, heard Crow say that, or,
Sounds like something he would say.
Yeah. It's something Crow said. And so that, first of all, let's think about this a little bit. If you were to measure equal day night, how do you do that? And what I'm getting at is, when you really think about it, it's totally dependent on the atmosphere. So, how can you, even if you have a very sensitive like device that's going to measure the day, and then say this device is set to, stop its stopwatch when it gets so dark. Well, how much is the atmosphere, the conditions of the day, going to affect that? It's going to affect it a lot. Okay. So what they do when you look at, and if you were to time it, just think about it. If you were ever to time it yourself, okay, say you stay up from dawn till sunset. When are you going to start your stopwatch? At first light? Well, first light, that's kind of subjective,
That's
right?
exactly what I mean. It's a subjective thing.
Totally. So how they actually measure it, if you go to, websites, you could look up how long is the day, how long is the night. They measure it from, and you could think of this with a scope, maybe like an infrared scope. I don't know what kind of telescope you need, but basically one that can see the sun through the clouds, right? So there's no, you could see the ball. And basically you start your stopwatch right when you first see the sun, and then you stop your stopwatch on the other side, you know, at sunset. You let's go to like 18. You stop your stopwatch on the other side when here at this part. So you start it from, you know, when the sun comes up to the sun goes out, and that's how they measure the equal daylight stuff. And so when you look on the website, yeah, it's going to be off. It's off. It's always like days after the equinox or days before, you know, when it comes to the autumn equinox.
You're doing great, man. I can tell because the chat is very scarce with commentary, but the viewership number keeps going up. So like we're all just like, all right, finally, I'm understanding. And Gabe, I'm going to pass it to you, bud.
Right on. So I have a a proposition on how to measure the day in two perfect halves. And the answer is one reading through Plato's Republic is exactly 12 hours long. And that is so significant because this is the origin point of the divided line. And the fact that the divided line is exactly in the divided point of Plato's Republic is that it has never been cut. It is truly pagan. It has never been tampered with. It's truly pagan. And the fact that the pagans called humans, those who go crazy over the golden stone, I think they're pointing at the cut that we did on humanity. And we've been off of the natural system ever since. And so Plato's divided line still being preserved treasure in Plato's Republic is proof of its authenticity from the true pagan path. And I'm just going to say that is the perfect measure of half of a day. This is so profound.
It's making me think of John chapter 11, verse 9. So there's a 9/11 since we're talking about Crow, where Jesus is talking to his disciples. They're asking him about going to see Lazarus, and they're worried that the Jews are going to stone Jesus. And he says, Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there's no light in him. I've been thinking about, I mean, for sure that's
Yes,
you know, reference
yes.
to what you're talking about, Gabe.
Yeah, buddy. You just hit, this is such a crucial topic that we're on right now. I'm finding out that the true Greek astronomy holds like unreasonable attachment of meaning to whether you were born in the day or if you were born in the night. And when I say unreasonable, I think it is cold-hearted. And there are Nagamati texts that are about the group of the dark or the group of the light. And you think about the Uman and the Thuman that Hercules used to determine your fate. If you were get the black stone, it's a no. If you get the white stone, it's a yes. I think that true Greek astronomy puts you in the night, and they will not budge on this fact. It's cold. It's cold. So I just wanted to put that in the also in that parable about he who walketh during the day does not see he who walketh during the night. I think they were cold-hearted about who was born in the light and who was born in the day. Unreasonably so.
Well, let's keep going, PK. This
Right
is
on.
great.
All right. So let's then talk through the signs basically. So you got your chart. let's see if I have one pulled up here. No, that's not a chart. So I'm just pulling up a zodiac chart real quick. And here you go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through real quick what this tropical, this is tropical. Well, it's a chart. It's not tropical until you say it is, right? So here's zodiac chart, and we're going to go through it. We'll start with Aries, and we're going to go to Taurus or whatever. We won't go through them all. You'll get the idea. So here basically, like I said, is spring equinox, and what tropical astrologers call this point right here is 0 degrees Aries. So even when you come in here to Stellarium and you just in, I think, astronomy in general, right, that how they labeled the ecliptic is they start this ecliptic label, I think it's called the celestial ecliptic, I'm not sure, but they label the ecliptic starting at 0 at the spring equinox, hence 0 degrees tropical Aries. Okay. Now, this is where people get confused the most, and it's the hardest to wrap your head around. So, or for some reason, it's the hardest for people to explain. So I'm going to try and explain it, and we'll see how I do. The confusion comes in to the tropical, what they call these signs here are the same names as the constant that we've given to the constellations. So what would be easier, and everyone would kind of get it, I think, and understand, is if they didn't have the same names. So let's think of Aries as the first month or whatever, right? And we could just call it like number 1. Okay. So number 1, everything, there's 360 degrees on the entire ecliptic. If you divide it, every sign into 12 is 30 degrees. Okay. So you can see down here, you got your 30, and up here is where the 0 is, where the sun is right now. So from this point right here all the way down to this point right here, and I'll zoom out, is what is called tropical Aries. It's also just the first 30 degrees on the ecliptic. And you can see here, this is the constellation of Pisces. And so it doesn't matter, what you want to call that 30 degrees of the sky. It starts at when the spring equinox is, and then it goes all the way through, till, and you can usually basically just go like 3 months or so, till you get to the 30. I'm sorry. So it'd be 1 month to move 30. I was going to the other. So you move 1 month, and see how now the sun has moved from this point up here, which was in Pisces and 0 degrees, has moved a whole 30 degrees. So therefore it's like, coming out of tropical Aries. Now where it gets, people confused is that I've heard tropical astrologers say this, and it's confusing. They say, well, the tropical systems, zodiac, doesn't have anything to do with the stars. And I think that there's a little bit of disconnect there. And I think that that's not really an accurate statement. And here's why. Because what I'm about to say is not anything that, someone can argue with. I'm not giving an opinion right now. Okay. The spring equinox happens right here. Okay. and when the sun is right here specifically. And so that point in the sky is right below the right fish of a constellation that we call Pisces. But it's essentially, it's right there in the sky. There's no debating that. That's just where it is. That's where, when the sun goes through there, that's where it is. And so whatever, you know, when you say that it doesn't relate to the stars, I think a lot of what they're kind of alluding to is procession. You know, how the long procession goes, and this is what you'll read as an explanation. I don't think I need to like talk about procession, but essentially that's why they say it doesn't relate to the stars. But let me tell you why that's a little bit disingenuous, because for your lifetime and your kids' lifetime and your grandkids' lifetime, guess what? The spring equinox is going to be right there. You know, you could say it moves 1 degree. There's precession 1 degree every 72 years. Yes, but that's even a estimation. It's not, it's essentially a mathematical equation. It's not even, you know, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. You know, so to learn the actual sky and put it on to your tropical zodiac, I think kind of brings you back more in tune with actual Earth and the stars. I wonder how many tropical astrologers can go out at night without their phone and look up at the stars, you know, see Castor and Pollux, see, you know, see Gemini, see Scorpio, and they can kind of like, then can you translate that into tropical? And I'm going to go through a couple of ways that you kind of can, where it's kind of easier. But essentially, when you're looking at Pisces, when you're looking at below the right fish of Pisces, all the way over here to the end, that's what tropical people call Aries. Okay. Then you got any questions, anything you want to add, Chance or Gabe?
Well, we have with the tropical sidereal conversation, it often kind of devolves into or boils down to, it gets conflated with heliocentrism, tropical does, and it's really not the same thing, in my opinion. Regardless of the cosmology of heliocentrism, geocentrism, or anything else, the seasons are what they are. And the equinox marks a certain entry into the springtime season when the earth and the weather and the plants and all of life is on a particular part of the cycle. And that's happening no matter what model you imagine it to be under. So the question of like, is it the stars that are influencing the earth, or is it the sun influencing thing like astrology? Throw all that out and just say springtime is springtime. The equinox is the equinox, regardless of the background of stars. If you knew nothing about, if you had never drawn a constellation, the day of the equinox is when spring begins every time, regardless of precession and everything like that. So, you know, that's, to me, whenever you're talking astrology, and if you realize to separate the idea of these 30-degree segments and the actual physical constellations, and realize the constellations were given the designations to match those 30-degree segments as a allegorical tool for teaching about the process and order of operations of the year and how nature does stuff, then that's the simplest way to reconcile the discrepancy in my book. That it's, you know, the stars got the names and descriptions they got to help you understand what nature does in each segment of the year. Does that make sense? That's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to kind of point out that you could still learn the stars. Like, why wouldn't you want to learn that as even a tropical astrologer? Why wouldn't you want to learn that this spot right here, right below the right fish of what the constellation of Pisces, is your 0 degrees Aries, right? Like, so, and why I say that, why wouldn't you want to learn it? Because it's going to be like that your entire life. Whatever you want to conceive or believe happens or doesn't happen as far as procession is concerned, that could well be how we got to where we are now. It could be, or there could be something else going on. I don't know. but to be here and now, you can learn the stars. And so one of my kind of how I think about it is the whole tropical versus sidereal debate is then what it boils down to is essentially, imagine you and I go outside, Chance, and we obviously would have to go outside at night, right? And so then we could see the stars. And when you point, when we go, oh, look, the moon is right there, right by Regulus, and so right here, and we'll go through this because Regulus is interesting. It's right where 0 degrees tropical Virgo starts. Okay. So be like, yo, look, Chance, the moon is right there, right next to that bright star. And be like, oh, I think that means whatever the tropical books say a moon, in Virgo means, right? It turns into almost ridiculous when you think about it like this. Now, so Chance, you could say it means that whatever the tropical books say it means. And then I could go point to the same spot, right? This moon right here next to this bright star we call Regulus, and be like, no, that means something else that my like sidereal book says. And so I think when you think about it like that, to me, the tropical sidereal thing becomes a little bit ridiculous. And I'm not saying that there's not something to each system. There certainly is. So don't get me wrong. The reasons that they work and can work for people is because they are full, complete systems in and of themselves. But what I'm getting at is that comparing them and saying one is better than the other is as absurd as the scenario that I just described, in my opinion.
It's like saying one language is better than another language when both can communicate the same idea.
Essentially.
As long as it's internally consistent within its own rule set, the astrology is divination.
Exactly.
It's pseudoscience. And that's not a bad thing to call it pseudoscience. It just means it's not reliant on the scientific method. So
exactly. But as long as your system's complete, it still is a system. There's science to the system, because even no matter tropical or sidereal, there's still a science to it. The science is I'm showing it to you right here, right? What now we call astronomy, right? We've kind of separated the two, but the science is the math to predict, right, where the stuff's going to be. And then, however you want to interpret that using your system, you can interpret it just like doing a tarot deck and doing, pulling cards and there's some people are better at it than others, but, and I think a lot of it has to do with people tapping into that intuition side,
right. It's an intellectual scaffolding that is a framework that allows intuitive ideas to generate from the right brain side. It's something for your left brain side to grab onto. It's a complete thing. And then out of it, ideas can percolate up and bubble up. It's exactly like tarot in that way. That's why the systems correspond to each other so well. Yeah. And so I agree with you completely. I think it is a bit ridiculous to try to debate one over the other. And there's good reasons to have a preference for one over the other. I like tropical because it's simpler to me in my eyes in the modern age, because we have the calculations done for us. But in a different time period, you would think maybe sidereal would make more sense. It's still hard for me to reconcile like that Pisces can mean something could mean the time of year that Aries means. You know what I mean? In
Right.
tropical.
That's that too. I'll tell you, I'm not that versed when it gets into I've you know, I know the bare minimum maybe, or I don't know. I might know more than the layman, but as far as like, you know, the houses and like you just mentioned, you know, that is, I'd seriously have a question, you know, for, you know, as far as do sidereal people from this when the sun is here, which is not debatable that that is the spring equinox, when you go when it travels 30 degrees along the ecliptic, right? And then you got this constellation Pisces. If they say it's Pisces, then are they taking, you know, I don't think that you could just take the tropical astrology and lay it on there, right? Because it doesn't work. Like the Aries is like, you know, the Mars, the fire, the, you know, so you got all of that. So I'm not as familiar with sidereal to know the interpretations. I just know that sidereal is all about, oh, you know, let's go with the actual what we call the constellations, right?
Yeah, and that's what doesn't work for me about it, is because what Pisces means in symbolism is not the springtime. So no
Right.
matter what the stars have done in procession, the springtime is the springtime. And so that's, for me, that's the simple truth. And like the rest of it is a language, and what's real is what nature does. And so the better your language can describe what nature is actually doing, the better the language it is. And that's why I like tropical.
Right. But then, you know, you get into, you know, the houses and stuff, and like, you know, whatever house has to do with like your job, you know, it's like when you get into that, you know, you're not really talking about, um, the signs as much. Now, there is like a designated part in the sky, right? That is, it's kind of exactly what I'm describing here, you know, that this right here, this 30 degrees of the sky might be someone's ninth house or whatever. And that might mean something totally different, have nothing to do with Aries necessarily. Um, because then that same place in the sky could be someone else's fifth house. You know what I mean? So what I'm getting at is that it doesn't matter what you call these places in the sky, as long as you have like a complete system to do whatever you're doing. And I think it's useful just as like as much as tarot, you know, pulling tarot is useful. It's like a psychology session, but for you know, that's not as you know, modern, sitting in an office, you know, whatever. It's a way to get to know yourself better. And if you know, that sort of thing works for you, like I said, there's better than not astrologers. Some people are better at tarot reading. And I think one of the gifts, one of the things that make people better is that they ask the right questions. They can look at this system that gives them it sparks something to be like, oh, well, let me ask something about this question. And why it works is because it's a complete system that everyone has something to do with something that's happening in the stars that you interpret as one way. If you dig enough, you know, you can find something.
And I think in
So
either
yeah,
version, in either system, the relative relationship between all the parts is similar, regardless of the labels that are put on everything. You know what I mean? So I think
so
that's part of what makes one someone able to be proficient in one and another person able to be proficient and accurate in the other. Because really, that's what it's all like. It's all about the relationship between the parts. What the parts are called is totally subjective.
yep, yep. So let's keep going here and keep going with like kind of the astronomy side of things. So I'm going to switch back to this so that you guys can see a little bit better where we're at. And like I said, I'm not doing exact, like, I'm not sure if, okay, maybe that's closer. So don't get on to me if like this isn't exact, but what I'm going for right here with 620 is the summer solstice. Okay. And how I know it's close to the summer solstice is because whenever the sun rises and travels, let's back out a little bit and let's go like this, and let's follow the sun as it rises on the summer solstice. See Orion, he carries it, the sun, as a torch throughout the sky. Here he is holding the sun as a torch throughout the sky on till he sets.
That is super
right?
cool.
Yeah. And so some of these things is like, how, what a grand time that we live in. Orion carries the damn sun on his torch. It just reminds me of the Olympics. Summer solstice, that's the height of the summer. So that's really cool. And due to procession, if procession is like what they say it is, then we are so blessed to live in a time where that exactly happens. So I find little things like this like very cool. So there we just went forward 3 months.
I got something on the torch.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Something I picked up in learning about the erotes, the little cherubs of desires from the Greeks. One of the cherubs, his name is Hymenaeus. Very hard to pronounce. I think it's maybe Ymeeniaos, and he is the cherub of receptivity and wedding vows. And his symbol is the torch. The torch is a symbol of receptivity. And so when you go to the wedding reception, your words are comporting to this little cherub of the wedding vow. And so many weddings are ideated to be perfect for summer observance. And so the lifting of the torch of the summer solstice, I think, is a bit of a wedding. Also, Gemini is the twins and the lover's card. So this is wedding season for receptivity.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. You got anything to add to that, Chance?
Now let's press on here.
All right, let's press on. So let's go to now the next thing over. First, let's check this out. This is another interesting thing. So see here how I go. Remember, every 30 degrees is a different sign, right? And so this sign right here, and which basically goes from 150 degrees of the ecliptic to 180 is Virgo. So from there to 180 is Virgo. But right here when the sun rises with that star Regulus, like more or less on this day. And again, remember this dark green line is the ground. We'll just do that again. See how that's the ground. So when the sun rises with, there's probably that day. And like, so what I could do from Stellarium is like, I can go and I bet if I looked up, a tropical date, I looked up a tropical zodiac chart, you would basically see 8/22 is like the first day of Virgo, or it might be 8/23 23. No, it's probably 22. See how it jumps. So anyway, when the sun rises with Regulus, so when you're looking at the sky, Regulus is an easy star to see at night. So when you see Regulus there, you know that you're looking at 0 degrees tropical Virgo, if that's what you want to call it, right? And then so let's keep going. And then Virgo. So basically, so that was Virgo. Now we go to Libra. And so Libra is when the autumn equinox is. And remember when I said equinoxes, the sun rises directly due east. Okay, as close as it can. And so you could see here again, you got the equator, the blue line. The ecliptic is this orange-ish line. And then I just turned on the purple, which I don't even know what it is, but it goes through the other points. So anyway, right here then is 0 degrees Libra. It starts basically at, you know, the right shoulder of the constellation of Virgo. And then it goes down 30 degrees. So Spica, again, is another obvious star in the sky. You know, you can, it's bright. So Spica is basically toward the end of Virgo. I'm sorry, of Libra. And we're talking tropical. So tropical Libra, you know, ends around there. And so you could look, you know, Spica is there. And so let's keep going through, because the other one is kind of neat, and it's the the winter solstice. And basically it happens, so this is why I turned on that purple line, you see, because there. So 1221 is when, and that's basically, and you could see here where we went the other direction. So, you know, the farthest away, and then the sun turns around and comes back. And that's basically in, like, Sag is shooting it, the sun, essentially. So it's like in Sagittarius, but what, you know, tropical people would call that 270 is Capricorn. And so that is the constellations drawn out. And the whole debate, in my opinion, what it boils down to is, would you ever go outside and point to Mars next to the star Spica and be like, Chance, you know what? That to me means that I really got to, that something's going to happen in my future love life, that, you know, or whatever. And then someone else would turn and be like, no, that means, you know, that you need to start looking for a new job. And so what I'm pointing out is that snapshot that is in the heavens is what it is. No one's debating that. Mars is next to, in this example, Spica, the star. And that's not debatable. But what's debatable is how you want to translate that. And so I don't think anything's better than the other thing. I just think the systems are different systems, and know that what you are talking about is the same phenomena happening outside. And that's kind of it. Gabe, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I got something really, really weird to share. Can you go back to the equinox, the fall equinox, over the shoulder of the Virgin? This is so obscure, but it's very powerful for me personally. and I just want to share it because it's it's something else, guys. Like, you know, these things, they seem fanciful and ethereal and unrelated to our human experience, but sometimes it lands so close to home, I freak out a little. So, the moon is gauged by Arcturus, which is very nearby. It's at the crotch of Boötes. The moon calendar in Eastern astrology, the horn of Arcturus is considered the initiation of the lunar calendar in some systems. But this moon card for me is also signifying it's really the both the spring equinox and the fall equinox, and it cuts through Andromeda, who is the hostage. And so I think of the art on this card as kind of when you hold a hostage up on two posts, like King Kong, when they're going to sacrifice a virgin, she's got to be tied up, you know. So this is kind of like the mount for the hostage. And it holds from the spring equinox and it goes right pretty much through Arcturus to the fall equinox. So this symbol is on both ends, the equinox on one side and the equinox on the other. Now hang in there, guys. This is so weird. That location over the shoulder of Virgo, this is so weird, guys. I have played this cosmodrama out in life-threatening situations. And and it translates perfectly. So please bear with me. I know this is sounds like a long rant. In scenario-based firearms, we have a epitome of situational awareness that we build people into the ability to deal with a hostage situation. And in firearms training, during the hostage situation, you are literally trying to get an attacker who has taken a woman. We actually dress up a mannequin in a wedding veil. It's a rubber mannequin with a mustache and a wedding veil on. So it's actually not a real person. And then and the assailant takes this rubber hostage in their arms and puts a gun up to the hostage's head. And the technique that we are instilling into the student is to wait for the bad guy to make a mistake. And the mistake is when he lifts his elbow too high. As soon as his elbow goes up too high, that's your target. And I'm telling you, the target is right on the equinox line when you put that exactly where it should be on the day. So when I'm telling people to shoot with extreme accuracy so you don't kill the virgin, so you don't kill the hostage, I have played this out as a psychodrama 100 times, and I'm tripping to see it played out in the stars. And so I just wanted to put that into the context of the fact March is when the marching orders start. Everybody wants to fight over what system is best. There is intrinsic contentiousness around equality. And we ceremonialize it and put it into psycho-cosmodramas of immense proportion. And it's really hitting me home, close to home, with the fact that I've actually taken this shot a couple times, and I didn't make my shot. I missed.
So one thing too that you know, can kind of point out when going through this, right? So we looked at, now that we're familiar with where the solstices and equinoxes are in the sky, right? Remember the spring equinox was right by this right fish of Pisces. Well, and then the autumn equinox was what we were just looking at. But you know, think about Easter, right? Easter is the first full moon after the spring equinox. Where does that happen? It happens right there. It happens where and essentially, more or less, it happens in this area. It happens, you know, at where the sun is on the autumn equinox, right? So now we're looking at this, and we are, see my date down here. We're at it says 3/24, so we're just like a couple days past the spring equinox. This is where the moon is going to be full. So I think that that's kind of cool, right? You know, and it makes sense. There's a full moon when the sun and the moon are complete opposite of each other. But just to think about, you know, these things too, and going back to like what causes what, you know, and you can't really ever determine that, because it's like, well, what makes spring? Is it maybe when the full moon becomes full around here at this part in the sky? You know, it's all related. The moon becomes full at this part in the sky when the sun is at this part in the sky. You know, so I think that's just super interesting to think about stuff that way as well.
I never thought about my birthday, you know, day I was born, that because I have a full moon, I'm a Aries sun, Libra moon. And
Nice.
I've thought about it that the full moon was right over the shoulder of the Virgin in a sidereal
yeah.
sense. That's really cool.
Not even a sidereal sense. And yeah. In the actual sky, yes. My bad.
In the actual sky. Like that's
In
the picture
actual
of the sky.
This picture of the sky. Yep, it is right there, because yeah, the right side of the Virgin is 0 degrees of Libra, essentially. But yeah, so complete opposite. So when you look at the torch, right? And the torch, and remember this part right here was the summer solstice. Well, when the sun is there, then the full moon will be basically at where am I going? Full moon. What's the opposite of Orion? Here in the Sag. So when the sun is in Sag, you got the full moon. At the, put it this way. Let's just go to it. I'll show you. It'll be easier. So let's go back to the the winter solstice. So Christmas-ish time. And when the sun is at this place in the sky, right? At this like mark here, and you can see here why it's great here. This is the Milky Way. Basically, so when the sun is full here, that means that the full moon at that time will be right around here. So when Orion will be carrying a full moon at some point, and it's not exact, but the full moon will be in this general area at that time. So I think it's really cool how you know, you quite literally have that, you know, opposites happening here, and you know, in the case of Orion, you could think of like he's carrying the sun and then he's carrying the full moon. So that's also kind of cool.
You know, recently it's come across some of the weaves in the Telegram that in the most Greek articulation of CGJ, Carl G. Jung, his initials, if you give them the most Greek derivatives, it becomes something of the word syzygy. Syzygy. That word is increasingly important, especially for the marksman. Like what I was talking about with the hostage situation is definitely a syzygy equation. For Carl Jung's name to hold this syzygy is really powerful, because to me, that word syzygy hails back to one of my favorite little maxims. You know, in the world, only three things remain hidden for not very long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And I think of that being encapsulated in syzygy.
Which is a word that means conjunction or opposition, or like the conjoining of opposites. It's like it's an astronomical term. It's an alchemical term. It's a very magical term. Just for people that might not know the word syzygy. So is that? Do we want to bring back up Stellarium, or where are we at with your notes, bud?
No, I think we're good with the Stellarium walkthrough. You know, I could just show a couple of things now that you got Stellarium. Show just a couple of cool things that won't take long. That is just fun to do and play with, and so you could see how things work.
Cool. And then people remember you can download this for free on a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the.
Yeah, man. So, PK, would I be generally glitched? All right.
You're
I think
good.
I'm
Continue.
back. Okay. Generally, my equation for the differential between sidereal and tropical is, I think of it as approximately not a full month. I think of it as a backdraft. That I think of tropical as ahead of itself, running ahead of time, and sidereal seems to have a backdraft of a couple weeks. Is that even close to right to describe it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, so there's theories, you know, that, you know, I've heard and kind of thought through. So when, you know, when the sun rises here, we're back to the spring equinox, right? So when the sun rises there, let's go to, you know, what it looks like at night. And so when the sun sets, let me flip west. So when the sun sets, that's the moon. Let me come back. All right. So when the sun sets, and we could turn on let me turn on the ground and the atmosphere. And so basically, when the sun sets on the spring equinox day, right? And then it finally goes dark, that constellation you're going to see is Aries, right? So that's like, you know, maybe a crazy conspiracy theory that like, oh, maybe we just call it Aries because that's the first, you know, constellation that you see at night on the night of the equinox, you know. And if you go throughout the year like this, you know, so let's go to the next month. And basically, you know, the next month here you got Taurus, but none of this is exact. And it goes back to the whole crux of the problem. Well, if you're trying to divide the a year up into equal divisions of 30 degrees, the constellations that we currently have are not all 30 degrees. And
this is huge because we don't really have a good grasp on how the ancients actually did their observations. You know what I mean? We have the names of things, we have the mythology around things, but what you're showing right here, especially for like the camp of people that are suspicious of procession itself, like what if procession isn't as described or whatever. I think just because there's a lot of writing that describes a thing doesn't necessarily mean it's true or correct. But the case could be made that the reason why the signs in the 30-degree divisions are named as they are is because of what you see in what you're showing right here as the first thing that you see coming up at night. That's very possible. It's very possible that that's why it's all kind of shifted over one, and that it was designed this way from the beginning. And it's not that it got off track over time, but this was just how it was supposed to be as a,
Yep.
this the
Yep.
season you're in.
I go back and forth with it because it does make sense to me. If you think of that, how I started with the 4-minute precession of the sun, just how every day it lags behind, the sky. And so that then, if it's like fractions within fractions within fractions sort of thing, that, maybe it makes sense that there's some sort of larger precession, right, that the sun's doing. But then, so I go back and forth with it because it's something that you're never going to observe in your lifetime. And even if you started, so what I was like, well, what if I start measuring stuff? And this is where it gets real crazy. If you get into reading some astronomy books and stuff, is like, well, the 1 degree that they say, the sun precesses back 1 degree every 72 years, thus causing precession, is an estimate. And that essentially what it boils down to, if you were to somehow measure in a precise way for your entire lifetime and your kid, and then so maybe 372s, okay? so 3 generations of measurements. What's messed up about it is that they even tell you in astronomy, textbooks or whatever, is that there's this whole like wobbling thing going on anyway. And that if you were to take these precise measurements like you did so diligently for 3 generations, then it could still not mean, you still can't measure precession, because there could be like a -9, 1 year, or over years, it could be -9, and then it goes +5, and then it goes, but overall, the average is the 1 degree of precession. And so that's where it really gets like, well, shit, this isn't even something I could verify if I wanted to do 3 generations of diligent surveys.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
And
It's
and that's
crazy.
something, I'm glad that you described that. I've never read anything like that, but I think
Yep.
you've read a lot more astronomy books than me, because when you look at nature doesn't really do things the same way every time. That's not, there's always like, 2 versions of the same plant. There's some difference. There's a little bit of wobble. There's a little bit of variation. And I've always wondered if that is applicable to the celestial mechanics. And that's why the priesthoods and the astrophysicists have been so confounded throughout the ages in trying to create an exact system with perfect predictability, and model things out, because we don't live in a model, we live in a creation, and a creation is a type of a flow state. It's in flux by its nature. There could be something about that. I mean, the constant of nature is change. So in that sense, precession seems like a plausible idea, that there would be cycles within cycles that are bigger and bigger changes over gradual long periods of time. But I don't know. I think it's just a safe place to be in the not knowing zone. And try not to make claims that you can't substantiate. It's all very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you don't know. And then what it boils down to is we have been, in my opinion, so conditioned to believe that mathematical equations are reality. And don't get me wrong, they are very helpful. I mean, this whole program is mathematical equations, right? This whole reason I can do this is mathematical equations. But when it comes to something like precession over such a long period of time, how that is different to me is that that's not something that I can measure. That's not something that I can make, generations measure because of what I just described. This, however, this program here and what I'm doing is something I can look at, you know, and look at tomorrow what it's going to be like, and I can go see it. You know what I mean? So like this math here is tangible. It's something that I can see and know in my lifetime. The procession of it, and it may be true. I don't know. I think it's kind of like maybe there's some sort of retrograde thing maybe going on with procession too. Like, does it goes, processes back, and then like it breathes out, breathes in and out. I just don't know if it's as easy as, oh, 1 degree every 72 years. That's all I'm saying. It does seem to, you know, it does make kind of sense to me how it goes back once a year. But talking about retrograde, or 1 degree every 72 years, but talking about retrograde, a thing you could do here is you could track a planet, right? And you could see, so I'm just going forward in days, and I might need to go forward in months, but okay. So right here, you could see how Mars starts going back the other way. And so this is essentially it's retrograde. And so that's pretty cool to see on here. You know, just by going through the days here, I could tell when Mars started to retrograde, and it was basically like right there. You know, see how it changes direction, how it's going that way, you know, and then watch it will do it again. So now it's going back the other way.
You're
So anyway,
seeing why they called them the wandering stars
yes,
back in the day.
exactly. So that's really cool to see. And even a better thing to do is go to this imaginary North Pole up here. And from here, you could see kind of the sine wave of it. Let me turn off the atmosphere. Let me turn that off too. But here you could sort of see the let's follow another planet. Let's follow Jupiter this time. And so we'll go forward. So this is going by months, and it's not that let me try something else. Let's go with hold on, it's not following it. Okay. Yeah. So here I'm going forward in months really fast. But this is kind of cool to see. Again, you're seeing that retrograde motion where it goes and then it looks like it goes and turns the other way. So little stuff like this is fun to play with. You could go forward. Let's go back to like, time.
In the year 20,064.
Yeah. And it gets really messed up when you go like far. There's something crazy with calendars. So like if you were to go back to, you know, prior to whenever they say we started using the Julian calendar, like, I don't know, 700, don't quote me on that, something AD. Anyway, there's some date in here that changes crazy and it starts really messing things up. So that when you go back to like 0 or negative, you know, BC, essentially years, it's completely off because of this weird calendar thing that they do. It's like hidden in the code, but it throws everything off. So
is that a way to keep people from following up on like the flamenco research of new chronology?
I don't know, man. This thing's all open source. Like, that's why it's free. So I don't know. A part of me, I don't feel like there's any sort of thing going on with that. I think it's just like someone like made a good argument that, well, they didn't use, you know, the Julian calendar before this date, says Wikipedia, and, you know, or however they got, you know, that information. And it's like, someone made a good argument, and that's just the way they made it. That'd be my opinion. But anyway, this is what's cool about the North Pole, is that you could just go here and play and see things a little bit simpler. So just like I like to go to I use Quito, Ecuador for the equator. So just like I like to go to the equator, it's fun to go to the North Pole too. And never been to Antarctica though. You know,
Are you allowed?
No, not allowed to go. So never been there. But it's probably cool too. I don't know what's going on in Antarctica. So I guess that's all I got with the Stellarium. There's so much stuff here. There's also let's see, there's one little thing here that is, if I can find it, like a plays a little video script of the analemma. So let's see. Oops. Can y'all still see this? All right, so check this out. You can see down here the dates. It was 12/22, and it just went and it just showed the analemma. So anyway, it's got little scripts in here that run that do cool stuff like that. I haven't really messed around with them, but you know, there's an analemma, and then there's whatever these are. So
Cool, man. I've got it installed
That's
now.
awesome.
And I'll definitely bring this into the toolkit for, especially if we're, talking astrotheology. Much easier way to show and tell. I've been foolishly, when making like astrotheological presentations, just trying to find like Google image constellation images. Oh, that doesn't work.
Oh, so see here, this script here has the what they call the IAU constellations drawn out. So like there's IAU borders, right? The Astro Police. And it's crazy. If you look at the Royal Society, there was this like I forget what I was reading about, but there was this gang, a bunch of nerds got together, and they called themselves something police, and they were out to determine something astrology wise, but it was very weird that they were called like the police, and they were, I think, maybe trying to disprove something or whatever, but I don't know. Royal Society astrology police might get you to it, but here's what we were talking about, the constellations being different sizes. If y'all can, you could see, so this little script here had them all drawn out. So it's like, and then there's also stuff called too, right? What's it called? Real sidereal. Is that what it's called?
True sidereal, yeah.
True sidereal, which is like, they go by
Wow, double speak.
Yeah, true
Okay.
sidereal, because if you just say sidereal, then I think if I understand correctly, then you are still splitting the zodiac into equal 30 degrees. But then the difference, right? Well, the problem here is that as you could see here, all the constellations are not 30 degrees. So then there's this whole other thing called true sidereal. And that is like it. I think it takes these maybe readings and like it goes off these boundaries instead of just splitting it equally. It's like Virgo will be that long. Virgo will be the long, sign. And then, Capricorn will be little. So, it's whatever. As long as the system's complete, I don't care.
So
what
PK, I've got a little weave going right now. So on the Slick Dissident channel, oh, nice, Polly. I've recently discovered the IAU or the IAU system, and I'm incorporating it into my awareness more and more. And I've taken the well, okay, let me say this. IAU, International Astronomical whatever unit group, that is also in the Greek number for 9/11 is a Sampi AI, which is IAU in reverse. This pattern is probably only meaningful for me. uh, but it's fascinating because the Sampi is now on, because I'm going into Greek numbers, the Sampi has become increasingly important. It looks like a mushroom. Anybody who's not familiar with the Sampi, it totally looks like a mushroom. Uh, but for the IAU system to have an acronym that fits into a reversal of the Greek number for 9/11 is mind-blowing for me because Urania, the muse of astronomy, seems to always end up in the 9 spot. And this pattern is actually telling on a substratum of knowing that again, you'll only get on Slick Dissident, but Urania keeps popping up in the 9 position. And this is profound because there's a slothfulness, a stillfulness, an unmovingness around Urania. And so no matter how I look at her, she's landing in the 9 and pointing at the stars. She's constantly. I go to a different story and it's Urania is in the 9 spot. She's holding I call it the egg noirahance. She's holding ignorance. And everybody's ignorance of astronomy is the stone that will not move. But we're all doing a lot of work around it. But to find that 9/11 encodes the international system for astronomy has put it as a priority in my worldview in a fascinating way. But the thing is, I had Urania in the top spot already. I go off running around on a whole nother weave and I find another artifact that puts her back in the number 9 at the top of the Enneagram, holding an implement or a symbol for astronomy, yet again from a whole nother path. And so, yeah, here's another thing I want to mention. If it has been vilified or made to look scary, or if I'm supposed to recoil, that's exactly how I do not react. I can't resist. And so when I find that 9/11 is encoding astronomy, and I happen to know that there's a vast amount of ignorance around astronomy, uh, it just clicks into place. So yeah, the IAU is a high priority for me, and in a funky, schizophrenic kind of way, it is encoding 9/11, the Greek number for 9/11, but it is a top priority, and I'm constantly finding it um, in the 9 spot. So I just wanted to. Oh, in the IAU, they have a list that is prioritized by constellation size. So the top constellation is Hydra, number 1. And hold on, I have it goes Hydra, Virgo, Ursa Major, Cetus, Hercules, Eridanus, Pegasus, Draco, and Centaurus. Those are the 9 biggest constellations in priority of size. And when I put them into my Enneagram in priority of size, I'm getting amazing feedback, which is telling me that this IAU list is very important. I'll just say that it's very important. So yeah, I'm incorporating it into my systems as well, especially because it's labeled 9/11.
Man, this was really great. I'm sure that you're probably wondering about everyone in the title where we have the Sky Clock and Stellarium and Apollo's pretty purple posies and the hyacinth and all that behind us. I think I'd really like to get into that, but how do you feel about putting it on a future Wednesday? Because I think our eyes were a little bigger than our stomach here on the two topics together. And I don't want to drag you through a 3-hour show. You probably have a respectable job in the morning and things like that. How do you feel about coming back, man? Because this has been awesome, and maybe we can have you more regularly. I can't. You're muted right now or something. Can't hear you. No worky. Is there like a physical mute button on the mic itself? Okay. Well, that might kind of answer the question that we're not going to get into that part yet, but it's definitely on the docket for a future hang. I know that's what Gabe's really looking forward to, is getting into the symbolism stuff.
Yeah.
I just switched my computer. Y'all hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you, PK. You're back.
There you go. There you go.
I switched to the computer mic. I don't know what happened. But yeah, that sounds good, man. The purple dig, we could at least give people a little tease. Maybe, but not go into it. It's worth maybe having another episode about it, because there's this new channel out there that I'm sure a lot of y'all have looked at, and we have feel different ways about it, but it's called Lady Babylon, and it's really weird, but like interesting at the same time, and it kind of reminds me of like Chance, I think you said it really good. Like, it was kind of how like Archaics was cool at the beginning. It was like something new, and then you found out it was anyway. I
never thought it was cool, for the record.
Okay. Well, it was,
but it blew up.
Maybe, right? It was something different. It was something that blew up, and so like this channel is also kind of seeing similarities. Like, I feel like it's doubled since I joined or subbed to it like 2 weeks ago. And anyway, it's weird. There's a bunch of like, weird crap with it that
for the record, I personally am not endorsing it.
Right.
For my opinion.
I'm not endorsing it either. I will just say that I'm a nerd for the language, and so that's what I like. And what I'm talking about specifically is the Greek, and that with all these resources, like Perseus and, easy, we live in such a cool time that, we can just pull up stuff and copy paste translations and or look up definitions in other languages. And so a lot of this stuff can be verified to an extent where you just kind of check another book and see like, oh, this word was used in this, document, talking about old Greek writings, and it means like this in that context and stuff. So it's interesting for that. It's got a lot of baggage with it that it's really weird. So anyway.
And the whole Satanism thing. It's really not my cup of tea.
Satan, which is super weird to me. Yeah.
To me, I think that it's somebody who's cashed in on the Q-tard, PDF files, chasing them through the sewers, all of that aspect of truther culture that has grown so much in the last 4 or so years. And so that flavor is being applied to now ancient history and all that, and to allegorical, mythological, fictional characters as if they were real. So there's a lot there that's just right on the surface of it. I have no interest. But if you're finding good stuff in terms of his linguistic side of his research, great. You know, take what works and leave the rest. But I'm not sending anybody over there from my recommendation. There are other ways to learn Greek.
Yep, no doubt.
You know, some of my just first wave of thoughts around the Lady Babylon situation is my favorite way to learn is from other people's mistakes. And I think that there's a lot of characters in the conspiracy world who take their shtick and run with it. And I am so glad they do, because we can benefit from all their fuck ups after they're done burning out. And so there's something to say about taking it too far, but also benefiting from the fact that somebody else took it too far. And now the way is clear for you to experiment safely on that path. And so there's something I'm really appreciating about hubris, and that hubris can be highly functional. And so, yeah, I am, and also I am offended by a great many things that are going on over on that channel in my way. I'm offended in my way. Nobody else
Clutching
is
your
offended like
pearls.
I am when they watch. Oh my God, I'm clutching pearls all the time, but only in my own way. And what happens is this becomes a revelation onto myself. And I say, well, why am I clutching my pearls at these silly boys passing around the muses like a college bong? Why does that offend me? And so I get to benefit from their mistakes. So the thing about Hail Satan, I'm not going to defend Satan. I'm not going to be like, oh, don't talk about Satan, but just hear me out. Satan is just wrath. Lucifer is simply pride. Leviathan is envy. Mammon is greed. Glutton is Beelzebub. And lust is Asmodeus. And Belphegor is sloth. So those silly boys are praising Satan. They're only getting 1/7 of their potential deadly sins medicine.
Mm-hmm.
There's some hubris in that. All right.
Yep, dude, I love that. And so I think a lot of it, well, I don't know, a part of me likes to think that a lot of it is like just a show, and it's kind of it's to get feedback. It's to, something
It's to
happens when
generate a
people say
response.
that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
to
to get,
generate a
it's for
response.
attention.
It's for attention. And it's like, do they actually mean it? I don't know. If you look into Satanism and what Satanism is, it's like they don't even believe in a god. Like, they're atheists. So like the whole Hail Satan thing is just like basically like a fuck you Christianity. And it's like, still, to me, it comes from a weird place of like, why even do you feel like you have to do that in the first place? It's like, what are you, a little like kid needing attention sort of thing? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's much better ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, it's like that doesn't deter me. I'm just speaking personally. Like, I don't care if someone can like put on that show, but it's like, that's not what I care about one way or the other.
Like if there's something you're running away from and you're focused on what you're running away from, you're actually running towards something. But if what you're focused on is what you're running away from, you don't know what you're running towards. So that's why you should always focus on what you're running towards or sailing towards. Like, so whenever the whole aesthetic of a thing is about, this is why I hate it, this is what's bad, or I hate this, it's pointless to me. It's about building. And if what you're building is just on the platform of why something else was bad or wrong or distasteful to you, that's
And
bad.
so what?
That's not going to get you anywhere. You don't even know where the hell you're going. You're going somewhere ugly.
And so
yeah.
100%. But what you got put up with, though, to get the why I will watch the channel is because what he does is he pulls up sources of Greek texts I've never heard of before that I can go look at myself, and through a heart. Some of them aren't even translated into English. Like you can't find like Galen, for example. Why isn't Galen, who was like Marcus Aurelius's like doctor guy? Okay, back then, why is his stuff not? There's no English translation of it. Like no one's done it yet, and he points to that all the time, saying like there's a bunch of like weird pharmacological terms in there. Anyway, it seems like an interesting read. There's just no easy like. And so what I'm getting at is I never would have. Maybe I would have heard of Galen, but I wouldn't have heard him described in some sort of like, hey, I'm reading the Greek and this is what I say it says, meaning that,
No, that's great. I'm glad you got eyes on that,
cool
and
like
you're
that.
compiling those sources
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
That's good.
What I like about it.
And that's exactly like what Gabe's talking about, learning from, like, being grateful for those that take it too far, so that those of us that are here for the long haul, with staying power, with real like authentically good intentions behind our interests, are able to benefit from the ones that took it too far. I mean, ultimately, that's the exact purpose of the idea of Satan in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're going to learn what not to do by watching what you're doing. And that's fine. Cool.
Totally. I had a conversation with a family member of mine. We were really getting into natural law, and in the conversation about natural law, the concept of anarchy, like true pure anarchy, comes up. And as soon as anarchy is on the table, her mind slides right into Satanism. And she says, that sounds just like the satanic. And she starts trying to familiarize me with some of the tenets of the satanic order. And I was kind of shocked to see what I think is really hour of nuance. And that is that I believe that satanic theatrics are shit coding true anarchy. And as long as you can dress anarchy in something that the Christians will all get busy, then they'll never look at it. They'll never look at it. And in my opinion, Christ was a narc-kissed king. He was a narc-kissed king. And you could take that or you can leave it.
All right, so we're going to reconvene with PK in the near future, and we're going to get into the purple question. We'll do it, and probably other things by the time that rolls around. So
yeah, probably be on something else by then, man. I soak up a little bit of it and kind of keep moving. So
I get you. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. We'll just make sure we have you back, and whether or not we ever complete the purple weave, that's cool.
May not. Yeah, check it out. Well, thanks for having me on, man. This was great. I feel sorry for anyone who was here for the purple and we didn't get to. We kind of did spend a long time on Stellarium, but I hope someone out there got something out of it. Even if it was just one little thing, because I am and so maybe this too would kind of inspire me to put together what we went over this evening in a bit more concise of a format to kind of point someone that does stumble into that question, which they always do right at the beginning, with the whole tropical sidereal.
Start the YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah. Again, thanks again, though, for having me on here, and thanks everyone in the chat for hanging.
Yeah, we'll be back every Wednesday. No more almost month-long breaks. Got lots of fun stuff coming up, and there's lots of ways to support the show. Check the episode description for that. The one I want to let you guys know about tonight is of all the many options are the flower essences from Lotus Way. I really am liking those a lot. Check that out. lotusway.com/InnerVerse is the affiliate link. Check out the elixirs, flower power. I mean, this episode was going to be getting into flower stuff. And we'll have PK back soon in July, I bet. So catch you guys all later. Much love.